Please join me now to welcome Mr. Javier Betancourt Valle, President of the Colombian National Hydrocarbons Agency, to the podium. At the end of Mr. Betancourt's intervention, we're going to allow for a 15-minute Q&A session. Please find in your kit a form to write down your questions.
Dr. Nayanto Guayamin, Director of Ligas, Ambassador Alcarzón, Ambassador of Colombia, Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, delegations from neighboring countries, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor that you visit us today here to show us a wonderful country. When I was seeing the video from Pro Export, it was really good, but it made me remember about the civets. And I think it's no accident that Colombia and Indonesia are the two first countries. That means we need to have a very good, close relationship in the future. Indonesia is a bigger country than Colombia, but I think you will realize that we have more things in common than we expected initially when we started to know each other. We have a big young population, and we're striving to do things better. I think we have very good learners from each other. You have a very old industry, a very good industry in the oil and hydrocarbons sector, especially in the offshore. And we are going to those frontiers, and we have a lot to learn from you. So that's what motivates us here. We want investment in Colombia, but we don't want any kind of investment. We can investors that we can learn from, and Indonesia, I think, is the perfect partner for that. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be here with you today. Okay, now I managed. I don't want to go back on some figures that we saw in the video, but maybe it's good to be able to recognize that we are the fastest growing major producer in the region. We started 10 years ago from a point that we were losing the self-sufficiency in Colombia, and the government decided to split the National Oil Company control and create the National Hydrocarbons Agency in order to avoid that future. And now we are seeing that Colombia ranks third globally for the number of new oil and gas discoveries, which has made us increase our production and our reserves, as we are going to see in the next charts. We are Latin America's oldest and most stable democracy, and we have a peace process underway that will will enable us to grow even further. Our Colombian assets after the peace agreement will be signed, and we are optimistic that it will raise their value. So this is the time to be in Colombia. And it's a country that has been stable. I like to say that our best asset in Colombia is that we respect the rule of law. We are open to investment and trade, and we respect the investors. When an investor goes to Colombia, he can predict how the behavior of the Colombian government, the Colombian state, and the Colombian community is going to be. So I think that is our best asset. We have many attractive things, but I think that is the best asset because if you decide to go to Colombia, you can predict how we are going to behave in our relationship with you, with all respect. So I hope after this presentation we will strengthen our ties, and you will be allowed to go to Colombia, and you will decide to participate in all the opportunities that Colombia is offering you, not just for the hydrocarbons sector point of view, but from all kinds of industries in Colombia. We're a growing country, and we would like you to be there with us. Our GDP growth, as you saw, has been stable at around 4%. We have a low and falling unemployment rate. The direct foreign investment in Colombia was around $50 billion. and we have a very good inflation rate, about 2%. Right now, Colombia comes from 15 years ago. If you read The Economist magazine, you would read that there was a question about if Colombia was a failed state or not. And today, we have managed to turn around the country, and that's something that makes us proud. But don't take my word for it, because as you can see, I love my country, I'm very proud of it, as anyone. But there are many people that have the same opinion. As you can see, the regional director for Latin America and the Caribbean of the Economist Intelligence Unit says that Colombia is a safe country for foreign investment with great potential because of the size of its population and the amount of the resources that Colombia has. Christine Lagarde, the director of the International Monetary Fund, said that Colombia currently has a very small deficit and a quite balanced debt. So the macroeconomic situation is very promising. Additionally, it is in a situation in which the fund can offer their help, which could not happen in the past. And as I mentioned, due to our government efforts and determination in the recent years, the appropriate conditions for a peace process have been established. Now, those news about Colombia being a really dangerous country are a thing of the past. The crime rates in Bogota, for example, are lower than in Mexico City or Rio de Janeiro, or even in New York. That's nothing to be proud of, but we're increasing our security and our safety in Colombia, so that is a very good place to be. And as you know, Daniel Jernin, who is the director of Cambria Energy Research Associates, that organizes the Zero Week in Houston every year, he talks very well about Colombia. He was there 2 years ago, and he mentioned that Colombia has very attractive attributes. First, it's blessed with hydrocarbons, which will allow for funding education, health, and other society needs. Second, we have a highly skilled industry and very talented people. Third, we have launched a predictable, rational, and modern fiscal and regulatory systems. And companies that need to decide whether in the world to invest, and Colombia has a competitive advantage. So we have a very good reputation. So that's why I told you, don't take my words for it. There are other things saying that I do. You see the participation of the oil and gas sector in Colombia represents about 35% of the direct foreign investments in the country. And it amounts to 55% of the total of the country exports. We have increased our production, and you can see it in the chart. Right now we are between the 20th most producing countries in the world, and we have reached the 1 million barrels per day goal, and we have gone beyond that. And we are coming from double on it, more than double on it, as you saw in the video, 120%, and we have reached that, and we are maintaining it. But there is a need to increase our reserves, because this rate of production can only be sustainable as long as we have an increase in our reserves. So that's what entitles us, motivates us to come here and to ask for your help to find those reserves. We have been working really hard in Colombia to increase our exploration, and we have done that in the seismic and the explorative wells that are drilled, as you can see in these charts. We expect this year to drill, we proposed a goal of drilling 130 exploratory wells. Last year it was 115, and we drilled around 1,200 development wells. But the industry came back to us and told us, no, we want to go beyond that. We want to drill around 230 wells this year. So it's looking good, increasing the exploration activity in Colombia, and we are there to help the industry to do it. We are very clear that the success of the industry will be our success. So we need them to be successful in their work, and we are there to help them as much as we can. And if you decide to be there, it will be the same. We need to increase our research, but we have been doing a very good work about it. During the last 6 years, we increased our research in 75%, increasing the research in oil, and gas research increased in 54%. Now, I would like to show you what we are going to do this year, especially. This is the map of our country, and we have there are the blocks that we're offering, which you will be able to find in the documentation that we provided you in the box that you have. There you will have a USB drive with a copy of this presentation and a book that has the technical information about each block that we are offering. We will also have the opportunity, if you decide to take a look at our information, of a virtual data room, a remote access to our data room, wherever you want to do it. We will give you a password and a login, and you will be allowed to see the geological information. We have invested in this in the last 4 years, $700 million, which for our country is a great amount of money, just acquiring geological information, because we want that our packages have an added value. The added value is better information to reduce the uncertainty and to allow you and enable the companies that are interested in the country to make better decisions. All the blocks that we are offering come with our interpretation. So those are blocks that we think are prospective blocks. We are seeing prospectivity in this block. These are blocks that we believe have potential. So we have left out blocks that we thought we didn't think they were that good as those that we included. Some companies have approached us and asked to include some blocks that we left out because they see some prospectivity, and we are analyzing that. But the main rationale between our decision is that we are including something that we believe in. So it has our faith. So we expect that you will see something attractive there. In total, we're offering 97 blocks. From those 97 blocks, 57 are what we call conventional blocks and are onshore blocks. 13 are offshore blocks, and we're going to include 2 more that we're going to receive from previous companies. From those blocks, 10 are in the Caribbean Sea and 3 in the Pacific Sea. And for unconventional oil and gas shale, we will have 19 blocks. Recently, just last week, we issued at the ANH the regulation for the contracts that were previously signed and didn't include the possibility of unconventional. So we managed to issue the regulation, and the Minister of Environment issued the environmental regulations, and the Minister of Mines issued the technical regulations. So everything is set for unconventionals in Colombia. We have a very good formation, La Luna, and I hope Dr. Ardila, who I will ask to address you later with more interesting detail, geological detail, more than my words that are just regarding economical and legal terms. He will explain to you all the work that we have done geologically, and I think it will be attractive for those of you who have a geological background. Finally, we will have a second stage of this bid round during the second semester, which is going to be for unconventional gas associated to gold bedding, which is the CBM. That will be for 8 blocks, and we plan to do it during the second semester. And the reason is that Colombia, something that we're really sure is that Colombia is rich in coal, and when there is coal, there is CBM. One thing, and I know you have learned that, is the question is it going to be commercial? That is something that remains to be answered, but we are offering these 8 blocks, and we trust that they are going to be very attractive. Here, maybe you cannot appreciate it in detail, but you will have that information in the USB that we're providing you with the bag that we gave you. There is a summary of the schedule of the bid round, but let me just tell you that we already issued the draft of the terms of reference and model contract for comments of the industry, and we plan to issue the final terms of reference. Here it says that on April 11th, but I just received some comments from members of the industry here in Indonesia that would like to see this time extended to have more time to review the terms of reference. So we are going to extend it 2 weeks more. After this period, we will issue the final terms of reference, and there will be a qualification period for the companies that decide to participate, to provide the legal documentation, the proof that they can qualify. And we will issue the list of qualified companies by the end of June in order to have the deposit of the bids on July 23rd in Cartagena, Colombia. This is a process that is very open, very transparent. You can see it streamed online, and you can be there and you will see the bids are deposited in a transparent box for each block. And the companies will be able to see every offer that has been submitted. They are projected in the ceiling, so you can see how if you decide to participate, how your bid is qualified in real time at the same moment. So everything is on the table, everything is transparent. You can see what you're bidding on and the companies that bid also for the blocks that you are interested in. So finally, we will want to award the contracts that same week and start signing up the contracts. The CBN schedule, to summarize, it is going to start on June 30, and the goal is to award, it will be the same process, but the goal is to award the blocks October and start October and November, and start the signing of the contracts in December of this year. In terms of reference, I will want to make a brief summary of this. I don't want to bore you with many details. Just I want to express you that we will be available for you through the phone, mail, or any means of communication that you deem available or you would like to use in order to answer all your concerns or questions about this process. In Colombia, what we do from the start of the ANH, from the creation of the ANH, is that we created a new environment for the development of the oil and gas. And what we do is that we have, you will see it later, 2 types of contracts. One is an exploration and production contract, which we use for blocks that have very good information or that are located in basins that are mature basins. And we have technical evaluation agreements that are for blocks that don't have that very good information or are located in basins that are not mature, that are new or frontier basins. And we require the company that wants to be an operator to qualify for legal, economic and financial, technical and operational, environmental, and business social responsibility requirements. If you want to participate as an investor, you just have to qualify for the legal and economical and financial requirements. The legal capacity, companies can participate as an individual bidder or as a part of a joint venture. In Colombia, we call them consortiums or temporary unions, or promise to create a future association contract. The requirements for the operator is that he has been in business for at least 5 years, but if you want to be an investor, just an investor, you have to be in business just for 1 year. We require the companies to sign a transparency commitment and the declaration of the origin of the funds that they are going to use for the investment. And we usually check the backgrounds of the companies in some of those services that provide background checkups, in this case with work compliance. For the economical and financial capacity, we have divided the requirements depending on the blocks that we're offering. There are what we call discovered accumulations, which are really small fields that saw some kind of production at one point in time. And they were returning to the ANH, and we believe that they are, with a proper intervention, they will be producing soon. So for those blocks or fields, we are requesting the companies to credit that they have at least $2 million of net assets. For conventional continental exploration and production contracts, we require that the company has $6 million of net assets. For conventional continental technical evaluation agreements, we require that the company has $20 million of net assets. And for offshore exploration and production, unconventional exploration and production and offshore TEA, we require that the company has $200 million of net assets. This can be credited just by the operator, but if he's a part of a joint venture, all the participants in the joint venture can sum their net assets to credit this required. The companies that are included in the Energy Intelligence Top 100 are excluded for this requirement. And the companies that are qualified as an investment grade in one of the international credit rating agencies are also exempted from this requirement. Regarding the technical and operational capacity, for discovered accumulations, we require that the company, the operator, because this doesn't apply to the investor, the operator has drilled a well during the last 3 years, and either he has reserves of 50,000 barrels or an operated production of 300 barrels of oil equivalent per day, which is really small because these are small fields. For conventional continental exploration and production contracts, which are the 57 that we mentioned before, the requirement is that the operator has drilled 2 wells during the last 3 years, and that he has reserves of 2 million barrels of oil equivalent and operated production of 1,000 barrels per day. For conventional continental technical evaluation agreements, there's no requirement for wells to be drilled or that have been drilled, and that they have to credit 5 million of reserves and operated production of 5,000 barrels per day. This operated production has to be credited once during the last year. It doesn't have to be an average. Just by doing it once during the last year would qualify the company. And finally, for offshore exploration and production, unconventional exploration and production, and offshore technical evaluation agreements, we require that the company has reserves of 50 million barrels per day, 50 million barrels, and an operated production of 20,000 barrels per day. The companies that are included in the Energy Intelligence Top 100 are qualified automatically. For exception, another exception for this technical and operational capacity is operators that have had exploration and production contracts during the past 10 years with investments over $500 million, or operators that have been established for less than 5 years but have assets over $1 billion and operate at least 5 exploration and production contracts anywhere in the world. Environmental and social responsibility capacity are mainly documental requirements. For environmental capacity, the company must apply the ISO 14001 certification, or has an equivalent certification, or a document containing the corporate policy regarding the environmental management system in place. For social responsibility, the company has to comply the ISO 26,000 rule, or an equivalent certification, or a document that endorses the implementation of programs on social responsibility. So finally, the the threshold that has to be submitted for the companies are the financial and economical and the technical and operational requirements. Those are the main requirements that have to be fulfilled. How do we award the blocks? It's very simple. For discovered fields and exploration and production, continental and offshore, the criteria to award the blocks is the production participation that is offered to the ANH. Is what we call the X%. So the company that offers the higher percent to the ANH, that is the one that wins the block. If there is a tie, because let's say two companies offer 5%, and those are the winning bids, then there is a second criteria, which is the additional investment in the exploration during the phase 1, and that would be the tiebreak. For exploration and production, for unconventional and technical evaluation agreements for continental and offshore, it is backward. The first criteria is the additional investment in exploration phase 1. If there is a tie, the second criteria or the tie break would be the production participation or the X%. The data packages have a value of $40,000 for the type 1 blocks, which are the 57 that I mentioned initially, which are conventional blocks. And for the second and third type of blocks, which are mainly the unconventionals, the offshore and technical evaluation agreement contracts, is $100,000. Everything is tax included. For the companies that decide to participate in this round, we are going to sign per 10 companies, we are going to sign one attorney and one representative for a technical department. So the company will have always the same face, the same name to address, and we want to build a close relationship with the company so they will know who will answer their concerns or the questions. I would like to explain a little more about the contract that we use in Colombia for our exploration. As I told you, our main contract is the exploration and production contract, and to summarize, the contract grants the exclusive right to the investor or the company to explore the subsoil under the contracted area, to produce the hydrocarbons that are discovered, and finally gain a share of the production of the hydrocarbons within the contracted area. The share is all the hydrocarbons that are produced will belong to the company that produced it after they pay the royalties, and that depends on we have a sliding scale royalty, and it starts in 8% up to 20%. And we also have the X factor in the company that the company offered to the ANH, and in cases of high price, we have a high price payment clause that increases the participation of the state, of the ANH in the contract. The contract shall perform all activities at its own cost and risk, obtain all required permits and licenses, and use the best oil industry practices to explore and exploit the hydrocarbons. For the exploration phase, we have 6 years for conventional and 9 years for unconventionals. And for the production phase, we have 24 years for conventionals and 30 years for unconventionals, and I'm going to mention it later, for offshore. For the exploration period, we have, for conventional hydrocarbons, 2 phases of 3 years each, and for unconventional, 3 phases of 3 years each. The first phase is the only one that is mandatory. Why? Because the company has to perform some exploratory activities during this first phase. But if the company decides that there is no prospectivity in the block, at the end of this phase, they have the possibility to opt out of the contract. So it is the company's decision to continue with the contract and go to the second phase and increase their investment. But finally, if they decide that it is not prospective, they have the possibility to exit the contract. The technical evaluation agreement is a contract to conduct technical evaluation activities, as its name states, in a block with the possibility of converting it into an E&P contract. The duration is 3 years, 36 months, and the appraisers of the operator's rights is an exclusive right to an extensive area to carry out technical evaluation activities, to select part of the block to be converted into an E&P contract, and they have the exclusivity to convert it into an exploration and production contract during the term of the contract and 6 months more. So the company will decide if the information is good. They will have 36 months to analyze the block. That increases to 6 months after the termination of the contract to decide to enter into an exploration and production contract of part of the block that was granted as a technical evaluation agreement. And this is what I mentioned before. We modified the offshore contracts terms of reference. Why? Because we hired Wood Mackenzie as a consultant to analyze or to do a benchmarking study of our position against the other countries in the world. And we found out what we intuitively knew is that we were not very competitive. So we decided to address that. We want to increase our exploration activities in Colombia. We need to increase our research. So our council board decided to modify the high price payment clause for deep waters, which are between 300 meters and 1,000 meters of depth. We had in this high price payment clause 2 triggers to increase the participation of the governments, and those 2 triggers is what we call the P sub 0, which is the price of the WTI, and the accumulated production of the block. We did something similar. We increased the price sub 0 to $87.48. And there is a 40% discount over royalty rates established for conventionals. So that puts us in a very good position. Colombia is very committed to increase the exploration, and we know that the economical terms cannot produce a good rock. That's a matter of geology. But the economical terms can kill a good rock. So we are committed to make the companies and exploration and exploitation possible, profitable in Colombia. For the CBM, as I mentioned before, the process will begin on June 30th, 2014, and will be held during the second semester. We will give a priority that has to be submitted for the companies are the financial and economical and the technical and operational requirements. Those are the main requirements that have to be fulfilled. How do we award the blocks? It's very simple. For discovered fields and exploration and production, continental and offshore, the criteria to award blocks is the production participation that is offered to the ANH. Is what we call the X%. So the company that offers the higher percent to the ANH, that is the one that wins the program. If there is a tie, because let's say two companies offer 5%, and those are the winning bids, then there is a second criteria, which is the additional investment in the exploration during the phase 1, and that will be the tiebreak. For exploration and production, for unconventional and technical evaluation agreements for continental and offshore, it is backwards. The first criteria is the additional investment in exploration phase 1. If there is a tie, the second criteria of the tie break would be the production participation, or the X%. The data packages have a value of $40,000 for the type 1 blocks, which are the 57 that I mentioned initially, which are conventional blocks. And for the second and third type of blocks, which are mainly the unconventional, the offshore technical evaluation agreement contracts, is $100,000. Everything is tax included. For the companies that decide to participate in this bid round, we are going to sign per 10 companies, we are going to sign one attorney and one representative for our technical department, so the company will have always the same face, the same name to address, and we want to build a close relationship with the company so they will know who will answer their concerns or the questions. I would like to explain a little more about the contract that we use in Colombia for this, for our exploration. As I told you, our main contract is the exploration and production contract, and to summarize, the contract grants the exclusive right to the investor or the company to explore the subsoil under the contracted area, to produce the hydrocarbons that are discovered, and finally gain a share of the production of the hydrocarbons within the contracted area. The share is all the hydrocarbons that are produced will belong to the company that produced it. After they pay the royalties, and that depends on we have a sliding scale royalty. It starts in 8% up to 20%. And we also have the X factor if the company that the company offered to the ANH, and in cases of high price, we have a high price payment clause that increases the participation of the state, of the ANH in the contract. The contract shall perform all activities at its own cost and risk, obtain all required permits and licenses, and use the best oil industry practices to explore and exploit the hydrocarbons. For the exploration phase, we have 6 years for conventional and 9 years for unconventionals. And for the production phase, we have 24 years for conventionals and 30 years for unconventionals, and I'm going to mention it later, for offshore. For the exploration period, we have for conventional hydrocarbons 2 phases of 3 years each, and for unconventional 3 phases of 3 years each. The first phase is the only one that is mandatory. Why? Because the company has to perform some exploratory activities during this first phase. But if the company decides that there is no prospectivity in the block, at the end of this phase, they have the possibility to opt out of the contract. So it is the company's decision to continue with the contract and go to the second phase and increase their investment. But finally, if they decide that it is not prospective, they have the possibility to exit the contract. The technical evaluation agreement is a contract to conduct technical evaluation activities, as the name states, in a block with the possibility of converting it into an E&P contract. The duration is 3 years, 36 months, and the appraisers of the operator's rights is an exclusive right to an extensive area to carry out technical evaluation activities, to select part of the block to be converted into an E&P contract, and they have the exclusivity to convert it into an exploration and production contract during the term of the contract and 6 months more. So the company will decide if the information is good. They will have 36 months to analyze the block. That increases to 6 months after the termination of the contract to decide to enter into an exploration and production contract of part of the block that was granted as a technical evaluation agreement. And this is what I mentioned before. We modified the offshore contracts in terms of reference. Why? Because we hired Wood Mackenzie as a consultant to analyze or to do a benchmarking study for our position against the other countries in the world. We found out what we intuitively knew is that we were not very competitive. So we decided to address that. We want to increase our exploration activities in Colombia. We need to increase our research. So our council board decided to modify the high price payment clause for deep waters, which are between 300 meters and 1,000 meters of depth. We had in this high price payment clause 2 triggers to increase the participation of the companies. And those three triggers is what we call the P sub zero, which is the price of the WTI and the accumulated production. So before it was around $42 for the price of zero and 5 million barrels for the accumulated production. And as you know, in the offshore, 5 million barrels, if you have a good discovery, will be reached during the 6 first months of the exploitation. So it triggered the participation of the state really fast. So we decided to delay that in time to allow the companies to get a better income, to get a better income and to increase the possibilities of the investment project. And we decided to increase the price of zero to $81 for the deep waters, and the product to $82, sorry, and the accumulated production to 200 million barrels. And for ultra deep waters, which are above 1,000 meters of depth, we increased the P sub zero to $100 and the accumulated production to 300 million barrels. In the chart and in the study that we contracted with Wood Mackenzie, this modification puts us somewhere between Uruguay and Ghana. And we will have an even better upside of these benefits because the government is now studying. It's not at the decision of the ANH, but we have approached the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Commerce, and they have agreed with this proposal, and it is going through the appropriate procedures within the government to grant the offshore exploration the qualification of a free trade zone, a zona franca, as we call it in Colombia, and that will even better our competitive position, and we will be even better than Uruguay. So this is the place to be, and this is the place that we would like to see, because you have all the exploration capabilities and all the exploration experience of the offshore. So we have a lot to learn from you. I'm going to leave the explanation of the exploration program to Dr. Ardila, who will come after me. For unconventional contracts, we did something similar. We increased the price of zero to $87.48, and there is a 40% discount over royalty rates established for conventionals. So that puts us in a very good position. Colombia is very committed to increase the exploration, and we know that the economical terms cannot produce a good rock. That's a matter of geology. But the economical terms can kill a good rock. So we are committed to make the companies and exploration and exploitation possible, profitable in Colombia. For the CDM, as I mentioned before, the process will begin on June 30th, 2014, and will be held during the second semester. We will give a priority to the holdings of mining rights who associate and make bids for areas. But experience in CDM is required either directly or through a joint venture with an experienced operator. And the draft of the terms of reference will be published for comments on June 30th, 2014. Thank you very much, and I will now introduce Dr. Luis Ardila, who will help me with the technical. There's a coffee break now. After Gladys will help me with that. That's it.